Welcome to the first ever episode of the Press Coverage Podcast. I am your host, Ben Klingler. I am 16 years old, and not to brag, but I have more college football knowledge than anybody that you know. Now, the Press Coverage Podcast is your home for college football coverage this upcoming season. Wall-to-wall coverage. We're going to give you top 25s. We're going to give you game breakdowns, power ratings, players to watch to get you ready for Saturday in the greatest sport in the world. We're going to get that done throughout the week. We're also going to give you Heisman watches. We're going to give you hot takes. We're going to give you post-game reactions after the games. We're going to give you everything that you could possibly want covering the college football season this upcoming fall. As for this first episode that we're going to be covering, we're going to go through before the season starts and break down each of the 69, 70 Power 4 college football teams, including Notre Dame, including Oregon State, and including Washington State. We're going to break down their schedules specifically and kind of see what I think their record will be this 2026 season. The 11 teams that we're going to be doing today, it's in alphabetical order, so we're going to be doing letters A through C, which includes Alabama, the Alabama Crimson Tide. We got the Arizona Wildcats. We have the Arizona State Sun Devils. We have the Auburn Tigers, the Arkansas Razorbacks, the BYU Cougars, Baylor Bears, California Golden Bears, Cincinnati Bearcats, Clemson Tigers, Colorado Buffaloes, and that is the group that we will be covering today. Now, as for the first team that we're covering, it's a big one. We're covering the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Alabama last year made the college football playoff, going 10-2 under quarterback Ty Simpson and second-year head coach Kalen DeBoer. In the first round of the playoff, they played at Oklahoma, and they won before falling to number 1 Indiana in pretty embarrassing fashion in the Rose Bowl in that quarterfinal game. Albeit not for Alabama standards, not a perfectly successful season, but not a season that Alabama fans are going to hate. This upcoming season, it's definitely a young Alabama team. They just named Keelan Russell, the redshirt freshman, their quarterback 1, which now makes a redshirt freshman and freshman backfield between Keelan Russell and running back Xavier Crowell. Pair that with a really young offensive line, and this Alabama offense could take some time to gel and get all back together. I mean, so offensively, they're young, they're talented, but young, so it could take some time to gel, maybe even throughout the entire season. As for the defense is going to be solid. I think they return some key pieces. I think the linebacker core is going to be good. Their pass rush is sneaky good. So that's pass rush is an area I'm higher on than most Alabama fans and most college football insiders are on this Alabama squad. I really like what they did there. As for the schedule, they host East Carolina week 1. Then they're at Kentucky, host Florida State, host South Carolina, at Mississippi State. Those first 5 weeks, I think those are 5 wins. To be honest, I think host Florida State, Alabama fans know this is not an easy game. I think Florida State's going to be a little lower this year. I think Florida State's a tougher game. Will Stein in Kentucky is a tough one on the road. I think, again, just you talk about the talent difference. At Kentucky, at Mississippi State in weeks 2 and 5, 2 tough road games, 2 head coaches, 2 sneaky athletic quarterbacks that are going to make this game interesting. But then when you talk about the talent difference, you have Alabama here and you have, Kentucky and Mississippi State here. The talent difference on the field, I think, is going to show. Even if it's close, maybe for a half in one of those games, I think Alabama handles business, both of those. The sneaky one is host South Carolina in week 4. Lenore Sellers is a really good quarterback. The South Carolina team, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. But I think because it's in Tuscaloosa, it's in Bryant-Denny Stadium, I think Alabama handles business late. And by probably 3 points to a touchdown, I think they get the win. Now, they have a brutal stretch in week 6 through 10. They have host Georgia, at Tennessee, host Texas A&M, then a bye week, then they're at LSU. Alabama fans, cover your ears because I think they go 0-4 in the stretch. Georgia, their defensive line is going to dominate this Alabama offensive line. Tennessee needs a win over Alabama, and they're going to be looking for revenge from last year. I'm going to actually personally be at that game. The atmosphere is just going to be absolutely incredible for that game. Host Texas A&M. If you know me, and you'll find out on this podcast, Marcel Reed is my favorite quarterback in the entire world. I absolutely love him. Love this Texas A&M team. I think Texas A&M is going to be really good again, and I think they get the win. And then at LSU, the Bayou, the Swamp, it's a rivalry game. Lane Kiffin, I trust Lane Kiffin more than I do Kalen DeBoer. And when you pair that with the fact that it's in Death Valley, I think it's going to be a rough 4-game stretch for Tide fans. I think they go 0-4 in that stretch, making them 5-4 headed into their last 3 games of the season, in which they host, or they're at Vanderbilt, they host Chattanooga, and then they host Auburn in the Iron Bowl. All 3 of those games, not difficult for the most part, at least not in what I'm projecting. I think they win all 3 of those games, and Alabama's going to finish the season at 8-4, missing the college football playoff and missing the SEC championship game, which is not what Alabama fans are looking for. I think this is really going to put Kalen DeBoer on the hot seat. I think he keeps his job, but barely. I don't think they can fire him. I think the only thing that keeps the job is how good Keelan Russell looks in the last 3 games of the season. I think they beat down on Vanderbilt, and I think they beat down on Auburn, not because those teams are so bad, but I think because Alabama, that 4-game stretch is going to teach Alabama a lot of who they are. And I think in those last 3 games, you're going to start to see this offense starting to click. And I think it's going to give Alabama fans just enough hope towards next season that they keep Kalen DeBoer, keep him. Though there will be a lot of fans and a lot of insiders, a lot of people inside the building that think maybe Kalen DeBoer is not the right guy for the job. And I think after this 8-4 season, the hot seat talks are just going to continue. Now, next team on the list, we have the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona is a team that is returning head coach Brent Brennan and returning starting quarterback Noah Fafita, making them a dangerous team in this Big 12. Their schedule: start the season Northern Arizona, that's a win. Then they go to Provo, Utah, another team we're going to be covering today, in BYU. This one's interesting. I think because it's in Provo, I think BYU gets the win. I think it's going to be an amazing game. And in a week 2 slate that includes Ohio State, Texas, Oklahoma, Michigan, and a lot of other big SEC games, I think this is one that I am certainly going to be tuned into just because of what this means in the Big 12. So I think Arizona goes to BYU. I think BYU wins, but I think it's going to be a great game. One you, as a fan, should definitely keep your eye on. Then in week 3, 4, and 5, they host Northern Illinois. Then they go to former Pac-12 opponent, Washington State. Then they host Cincinnati. 3 kind of mediocre teams, and I think not ones to be overlooked, but certainly ones that this Arizona offense specifically should not have trouble scoring points against. I think they win all 3 of those games. Then they go to Morgantown, West Virginia. They play the West Virginia Mountaineers. Rich Rod and this West Virginia team, I think they're going to have a bounce-back season. Maybe not to the point where they're a Big 12 contender, but to where a team like Arizona, who's coming off 3 wins, maybe on a lull, kind of overlooks this West Virginia team. They're a week away. Arizona's a week away from a bye week. They just sleepwalk into West Virginia, and I think West Virginia gets them by surprise. I think West Virginia wins this game, making Arizona 4-2 halfway through the season. Then they host Iowa State, and Iowa State basically lost everybody to Penn State, and so I think that's a win for Arizona. Before they go to Big 12 favorite Texas Tech. I think this Texas Tech defensive line is going to cause problems for this Arizona team, especially this Arizona offensive line, and I think Texas Tech wins that game, and I actually think they win it pretty comfortably. Then they finish the season, this Arizona team, hosting TCU, hosting Utah, then they're at Kansas State, and then they're host their rival Arizona State. A lot of fans, especially people who cover the Big 12, are going to call me crazy for this, but I think Arizona goes 4-0 in this stretch. I think they beat TCU. I think they beat Utah, which is crazy. I'm really high on this Arizona team. And then I think they're at Kansas State, which Avery Johnson back. It's again going to be a tough game. Those 3 games are really, really tough games. And then I think the fact that they get Arizona State at home means that they can finish out this 4-game stretch with wins. All 4 of those games are must-watch games. They're ones that I'm going to be tuned into. I forget how many of them are on Friday nights, but there are probably some Friday night games, which means we get some Friday night Big 12 action, which means it doesn't interfere with maybe some of the big games on the slate. But those are ones that I'm definitely going to be tuned into because how competitive and how equal the talent is going to be on the field. But I think Arizona, luck breaks. They get a little bit of luck this year, and they end that stretch 4-0, finishing the season 9-3, and then making a run possibly at the Big 12 championship and maybe even a run at the playoff. Now, as for their rival, the Arizona State Sun Devils, I have this t-shirt on, by the way. It's an Arizona State t-shirt. I'm not actually a fan of Arizona State. I found this at a thrift store, and so looked pretty nice. Figured we'd wear it when we're breaking down this Arizona State schedule. Their schedule, it's not easy. They host Morgan State in week 1, which should be a win, before they travel to Texas A&M. I just talked about Alabama not beating them at home. So how do we think that Arizona State is going to fare on the road against them? Yeah, you guessed it. It's a loss. Then they're at Kansas. I think the Jayhawks are going to be the Jayhawks are a sneaky one, but I think Arizona State gets the win there. Then they host Baylor. Baylor's a team you'll see later on that I'm really bullish on, and I think that's going to be a loss for Arizona State. So they start the season 2-2. Then they host Hawaii. Hawaii's another one of this team. Michael Alejo in the squad is not one to overlook. If it was at Hawaii, maybe I have a different opinion, but I think because it's at home, they get a win. At Texas Tech, if their rival couldn't beat Texas Tech on the road, neither can Arizona State. That's a loss, and they start the season 3-3. Then they host Kansas State. This is a sneaky spot for Kansas State. Arizona State, Sun Devil Stadium's not one that you can just waltz into. And I think if Avery Johnson and them do that, which I have them doing in this game, I think Arizona State's going to surprise them and knock them off, making them 4-3, headed into a huge road game on the road against BYU. Win this, you're at a really good spot. You're looking at 5-3. Lose this, and you're 4-4. And sadly for Arizona State fans, I don't see luck breaking towards them in this game. BYU return. They have too much veteran experience to not take Arizona State seriously. I think they're going to be ready for this. I think this whole Arizona, Kalani Sitake, Bear Bachmeier, this whole squad is just laser focused on this 2026 season. And I think BYU gets the win, making Arizona State 4-4. Arizona State, I think they beat Colorado at home, making them 5-4 before ending the season at UCF, host Oklahoma State, at Arizona. All 3 of those games being losses. Traveling to Central Florida, it's rough, especially rough on the body, especially late in the season. UCF, I think, is going to start to get things figured out. Host Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is going to be good this year. Drew Mestamaker, real NFL talent at quarterback. Pair them with Chad Morris, the head coach. Caleb Hawkins, the running back. Oklahoma State's going to be really good. And then at Arizona, like I said, I'm high on Arizona. So I have the Arizona State finishing the season 5-7. Yes, with 3 games to go, they were 1 game away from making a bowl game, but I think they end the season 5-7, missing a bowl game for the second straight. They made a bowl game last season. So not making a bowl game for the first time in 2-3 years. All right, next team on the list. We're getting back to the SEC, and we're covering the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas, they're one of those teams that has not been able to find their footing. Now they got Ryan Silverfield from Memphis as a new head coach. Ryan Silverfield's one of those head coaches that I think is going to take a little bit of time to get used to this SEC. I don't think he was one of those guys that just instantly is going to drew players to this Arkansas team. Will Stein got himself some really good players at Kentucky. I think new head coach Alex Golish got himself Byron Brown from USF. You talk about John Sumrall going to Florida. Those are head coaches that kind of drew players. Ryan Silverfield kind of didn't really do that. I think it's going to take him some time, the most time out of this group of new SEC head coaches to find his footing. I think it could be in for a pretty rocky year 1. They host North Alabama in week 1, which I think is a win. Then they go to Utah. Utah's going to be good. Devin Dampier, game 2 for Arkansas. I think that Utah gets the win there. Host Georgia, that's a loss. So I think they start the season 1-2. Then they host Tulsa before going 2-2. And then I'm not going to spoil with the rest of this. I don't have them winning an SEC game this year. They at Texas A&M, which is a loss. Host Tennessee, possibility for an upset. This is the game before the Alabama game for Tennessee. Sneaky possibility for an upset. but I think Tennessee gets the win. They're at Vanderbilt. By then, Jared Curtis is probably the starter. He's going to be slinging the thing. That's a win for Vanderbilt. Host Missouri. That's, again, upset opportunity, but I think Missouri wins. They're at Auburn, host South Carolina, at Texas, host LSU. 4 difficult games. The South Carolina one at home may be gettable. So you talk about host South Carolina, possibly gettable. Host Missouri, possibly gettable. Maybe the Tennessee game is a sneaky upset game. It's one that they can get. But I don't think they win any of those 3 games. I think, realistically, they probably win one SEC game. But in this prediction, I have them going 2-10. I have some of the wins going elsewhere. I think this could be a pretty rough season for Ryan Silverfield and this Arkansas squad. Now, let's go to another SEC team that I'm a little higher on in the Auburn Tigers. Just said that they got new head coach Alex Golesh from USF, and with him comes the dynamic quarterback Byram Brown. One of those quarterbacks I really like. He's a dual threat guy, which is dual threat quarterbacks mean that they're going to which means they have upset possibility. That's my saying. Is if you have a dual threat quarterback, I think you have a really good chance to pull an upset win in the SEC just because they're so hard to scout. Now, week 1, they host Baylor. It's in a neutral site game. It's in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think Baylor wins that game. DJ Lagway playing Auburn. I think DJ Lagway is going to be on a revenge tour. I'll cover Baylor. Actually, they're the next team on this list, so you'll get my reasoning for that. But I think that's a loss for Auburn. Before they roll off 3 straight wins, they host Southern Miss, host Florida, host Vanderbilt. I think they win all 3 of those games, and they head into their two-game road stretch 3-1. And of that 2-game road stretch, they play at Tennessee and at Georgia. Just 2 really difficult places to play, 2 really prestigious head coaches, and I think both of those are losses, meaning Auburn halfway through the season is going to be 3-3. Then they host LSU, and this is where things get interesting. I told you if you have a dual threat quarterback, you're going to pull an upset at some time in the season, and this is where it is. LSU sleepwalks kind of into Jordan Hare, and the Jordan Hare ghosts, the Jordan Hare demons, whatever you want to call them, they pull off the upset over the Lane Kiffin LSU Tigers, and they go 4-3, headed into their road trip to Oxford to play the Ole Miss Rebels. In that game, they can't pull 2 in a row. They go 4-4, 4-4, 9 weeks into 8 games, 9 weeks into the season. Then they have a nice little stretch here of host Arkansas, at Mississippi State, host Samford. Mississippi State, not one to sleep on. Neither is Arkansas, but I think they handle business in all 3 of those games, making them 7-4 headed into the Iron Bowl, which, by the way, 7-4 is the same record that Alabama would have been headed into this game. I do think, though, this game is in Tuscaloosa. This game is in Bryant-Denny Stadium. If it was in Jordan Hare, could you imagine this game being in Jordan Hare? And you have Auburn 7-4, which for them is a really good season, taking on Alabama, who's 7-4, which for them is a nightmare season, and Auburn pulling the upset and Auburn having more wins than Alabama. That would just be nuts. Like, telling somebody right now that I think Auburn is going to have more wins than Alabama would just be crazy. And I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's going to be very, very close. I think that Iron Bowl is going to be a really good game, but I do have Alabama winning that game, and it's Auburn finishing the season 7-5, making a bowl game and a really successful season for Alex Golesh, helping Auburn build themselves kind of back up to relevancy in the SEC, and putting them on par, putting Alabama as a challenge, so that we kind of have to put the Iron Bowl back on prime time and back as one of the big games of rivalry weekend. Now, next team on the list, I told you I'd cover them. This is the Baylor Bears. And I think this is the DJ Lagway revenge tour. Now, for those of you that don't know, DJ Lagway is the quarterback of the Baylor Bears now. He transferred from Florida, former 5-star recruit, former number 3 overall recruit in the 247 sports recruiting rankings. He's one of those guys that just never really clicked at Florida, but I think at Baylor and the Big 12 is just going to tear it up. I'm super high on them. I think they beat Auburn in week 1. Then they beat Prairie View A&M in week 2, beat Louisiana Tech in week 3. They host Colorado in week 4. I think it's a win. At Arizona State, that's a win. And then because they host TCU, I think that's also a win. And I think they're 6-0 halfway through the season. Now, they have their bye week in week 6, so it's before the TCU game, which is partially, again, why I have Baylor winning that game, but I think they're 6-0, and I think they're going to be in the top 25 at that point. And I think teams are really going to have to take them seriously as a possible contender. Now, the problem is the second half of the season, it looks a little rocky. They're at Kansas, which I think is a loss. I think Kansas is one of those teams, again, that's going to pull an upset over somebody. The Big 12 is just chaos. I think they pull the upset. They knock off the Baylor Bears. Then they're at UCF, which I think is a win for Baylor, before back-to-back losses, host Iowa State and at BYU. Iowa State, they have a dual threat quarterback, Jalen Rayner, got him from Arkansas State. This is the game against Baylor, who, other than DJ Lagway, kind of has an average, like straight across the board, average Big 12 roster. And I think it shows in these two games, meaning they are 7-3 headed into their last two games of the season. And their last two games of the season are Texas Tech and Houston. And for those of you right now, you can pause the video and you can guess which one of them I think they win. I think they beat Texas Tech. They're one of the few teams to actually beat them. But then they follow that up with playing their other Texas rival at Houston, and they lose that game. So you have all the highs of being 8-3 headed to the last game of the season, all for them just to lose on the road to a really good Houston team. And I think kind of the good vibes kind of fall off. But in the end, Baylor's 8-4. And for Baylor fans, I think Baylor fans would like kill for an 8-4 season. I think they're going to be a contender in the Big 12. I think that, they pull off the upset against Texas Tech, which is one of the few teams to do that. And so I think Baylor fans got to be happy with this season. And I think 8-4 is what I have projected for this Baylor squad. Now, next team on the list, another Big 12 squad. We got a lot of Big 12 teams in this list. We have the BYU Cougars. BYU. Everything is absolutely laser focused on this 2026 season. You got Kalani Sitake back as the head coach after rumors he was going to go to Penn State. You have Bear Bachmeier back in his junior season. Basically, the entire defense, they've returned almost all 11 starters, I think, on defense. So this is a BYU squad that they're very experienced and they're very locked in, especially how 2026 ended for them, where the two losses to Texas Tech, one in the Big 12 championship, costing them a spot at the college football playoff. Their schedule, I think they start the first 3 weeks, host Utah Tech, host Arizona. I already talked a lot about that game. I think it's a win. At Colorado State, that's a win. So they start the season 3-0. Then they have a bye week. And I think you're going to have a lot of people, because they beat Arizona, kind of talking about this BYU team. Could they be good? Then they literally walk in to, I'm trying to remember what's the name of Ammon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, Texas. And out come the TCU Cougars. And I think TCU with Harvard transfer Jaden Craig, he was at Harvard. Jaden Craig, I think TCU pulls the upset. I think TCU beats BYU in week 4. And I think BYU's 3-1. Then they host Iowa State, and I think that's a win. They get back on track before they host Notre Dame. This is the biggest game in BYU history. Hosting Notre Dame, they'll be 4-1. Notre Dame's just really good. CJ, their talent, it's the same thing. The talent of BYU, they're really experienced, but they're not super talented. Notre Dame has some experience now. They have a chip on their shoulder, and their talent is just clearly above BYU's. I think Notre Dame wins that game, and I think BYU's 4-2 halfway through the season. Not exactly where I think BYU fans would like them to be. Now, then they're at UCF, and they host Arizona State. 2 games they take care of business in. They're 6-1. Then they're at Utah, the Holy War, one of the biggest weekends in college football. That Week 10 slate is absolutely loaded. This is one, again, in that loaded slate I'm going to be tuned into. I think they lose to Arizona. I think Arizona gets back to their winning ways, and I think because it's in Utah, and because of how last year's game went, I think Utah gets the win in that game. Then they end the season, host Baylor, at Kansas, host Cincinnati. I think we already talked about the Baylor game. At Kansas is a sneaky one, but I think they handle business. I think they beat Cincinnati. And BYU ends the season 9-3 but with only 2 conference losses, meaning I haven't looked exactly who I have in the Big 12 championship game, but I have this is a BYU team that will at least be knocking on the door of the Big 12 championship game, which means they might have another shot to make their way back into the college football playoff. All right, we finally get our first ACC team of the list, and I personally don't even think they should be in the ACC. It's the California Golden Bears. The Cal Golden Bears, they have a new head coach. They have the old defensive coordinator from Oregon, and my mind is blanking on his name. I'm not going to end up looking it up, but they have a new head coach, but same quarterback, Jaron Kiawe Sagapolatelli, is back. That name is a mouthful, and I think this is a Cal team that a lot of people, nobody's talking about. Nobody talks about this Cal team. I think they made a great coaching hire this offseason, and I think this is a team that's just really being slept on. I think week 1, they start off the season, host UCLA. UCLA, another team that's being slept on. I think host UCLA is a loss for this team. So as high as I was talking about Cal, I think I start the season off with a loss. And then the good vibes start coming. At Syracuse is a win. Host Wagner is a win. Host Clemson is a win. At UNLV, sneaky game, by the way. Sneaky game. Jackson Arnold for UNLV, former Auburn quarterback. That's a tough one. That's a win. Host Virginia Tech, because it's at home, is a win. Host Wake Forest is a win. So all of a sudden, because after that first loss at UCLA, they've rattled off 6 straight wins, and they're 6-1, headed into a huge 3-game road trip. They're 6-1. Think about that. California, the Golden Bears are 6-1. They're at SMU, which I haven't looked at what SMU's record is at this point, but this could possibly be like one of the biggest games in the ACC that and even one of the biggest games of that entire week, not 8 slate. Now, because I think SMU is just slightly better, I really like Kevin Jennings, and because it's on the road, I think SMU handles business, and I also think NC State the next week, the Wolfpack, handle business, meaning back-to-back losses for this Cal team before they finish off their road trip at Virginia. Virginia last year made the ACC championship game, lost in the ACC championship game, and I think this year with a new quarterback, I think a little bit of a rocky year for the Cavaliers, and I think California beats them, meaning that Cal is 7-3 at this point, and they end the season with 2 home games. They host Stanford, and then they host Pitt. You talk about the game against Stanford. Stanford's not very good, and Pittsburgh has to go all the way across the country to Berkeley to play, which means Cal ends the season at 9-3. 9-3, which for Cal fans is just absolutely amazing. I think Jaron Kiawe Sagapolatelli is a sneaky Heisman candidate. If I was old enough to bet, I would maybe sprinkle a little bit at his odds, because I think some of these games he's going to be able to throw for 1 billion yards. He's one of Cal ends up being as good as I think they will be. He's a sneaky Heisman bet. And Cal's one of those teams that possibly can make a run. They only have 2 conference losses because UCLA is not in their conference. So I think Cal's a sneaky one. If they could possibly make the ACC championship game, which would be a huge storyline headlining this 2026 college football season. Now, next team on my list is not so fortunate. There's the Cincinnati Bearcats. Lost quarterback Brandon Sorsby to the transfer portal, and then Brandon Sorsby ended up losing himself in gambling bets, no pun intended, but ended up losing to the NCAA in court cases. He's not in college football anymore, not even in the NFL. He's just kind of taking a year off because there was nowhere for him to go. But as for the Cincinnati team, it's a little bit of a rough patch. They lost a lot of key players. Receiver Cyrus Allen is a big one that I think is a loss that not a lot of people are talking about. And I think Cincinnati, it's going to show in their record. I think week 1 hosts Boston College. I think Boston College wins that game. Close game, competitive game, one of those games that you probably turn on for the last 2 minutes because it scores 24-24. But I think Boston College wins on the road. Cincinnati then hosts Western Carolina and hosts Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio, sneaky. If it was at Miami, it was at the Red Hawk Stadium, I would maybe even lean Miami, but I think Cincinnati needs 2 wins, and I think they get the 2 wins right there. Then they go on just an absolutely brutal 7-game losing stretch. Lose host Kansas State, lose against Arizona, lose against West Virginia, lose against Texas Tech, lose against Utah, lose against Houston, and lose against Iowa State, which is 7 straight losses. I mean, the easiest games on the stretch are West Virginia, which is on the road, which just ask Arizona. That's not an easy game. At Iowa State, again, on the road. Iowa State's not an easy place to play. And maybe it was the last easiest game, maybe Arizona, maybe Kansas State, which even Kansas State, Avery Johnson, we've talked about Kansas State losing to Arizona and BYU, and I think even Baylor. So Kansas State's got to win one game. Cincinnati won that they get. And so I think they're going to be 2-8 headed into the last 2 games of the season. I think they beat Colorado at home before losing at BYU in kind of their rivalry game because it's a rivalry week, but it's not, there's no bad blood between those 2 teams. Besides the fact BYU will handle business in that game, meaning Cincinnati, according to my projection, is a 3-9 team, 3-9 for this 2026 football season. Not exactly where Cincinnati fans will want them to be, not exactly where most people are projecting them to be headed into next season. Next team up, you may recognize this team. It's the Clemson Tigers. Dabo Swinney. They're back for what seems like a million. And he's got a new quarterback, Christopher Vezina. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's super talented, unproven though. And he gets baptized by fire because week 1, they travel to LSU. That, to me, is a loss. I don't see a way in which they win that game. They're going to be bullied on the lines of scrimmage. LSU is faster, stronger, and now I think maybe even better coached than what Clemson will be. Pair that with the fact that it's in hot take, the better Death Valley in LSU. I think that's a loss for the Tigers. Then they get back-to-back wins because they host Georgia Southern, and their ACC home opener is host Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels. I think they win both of those games. I think they win them pretty handedly before they have a rough next 2 games. They go to Cal. They got to fly all the way across the country to go play Cal, which I already talked about that, how good Cal's going to be. And so I think that's a loss. Then they have to fly all the way back across the country. They got to fly to Coral Gables, Miami to go play the Miami Hurricanes, who are the clear favorites in the ACC. I think they lose both of those games, meaning that Clemson is 2-3 through the first 5 weeks of the season. I think they pick it back up, beating Charleston Southern at home and then beating Virginia Tech at home. Virginia Tech's going to be sneaky good, but this game's in Death Valley, and Clemson's kind of in a must-win spot at that point. So they're 4-3. Then they're at Florida State. Tallahassee, not an easy place to play, 4-4. At Syracuse is a win. We know Clemson's had nightmares playing in that stadium. Dabo's not going to walk into that sleeping. And I think Clemson's talent is slightly more than what Syracuse will possess in that matchup. And I think Clemson wins that game. Then they host Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, Brett Key. One of Clemson's biggest questions is where they're going to be on the lines of scrimmage, especially on the defensive line. And I think Georgia Tech's just going to lean on them, and they're going to run all over this Clemson team, and that's a loss, which means they're 4-4. Their last 2 games of the season. I think they beat Duke on the road. Duke was one team I was really high on until they lost Darian Mensah. Now they just named Walter Eggett their starting quarterback, which most people don't know who he is. It's a little bit more of a proven commodity, not a lot of talent. Kind of gives them a safe floor, so they'll beat teams like, Wake Forest and, I don't know who else, Syracuse, teams like that, kind of the lower tier ACC teams, but doesn't give them much of a chance to compete with a team like Clemson. So Clemson wins that game, even though it's on the road, before they end the season at home against South Carolina, where I think South Carolina beats them again, the second straight time they've won that game in Death Valley, meaning Clemson ends their season bowl eligible, but at 6-6, meaning that Dabo Swinney is even more on the hot seat, and that means that there's going to be serious talks around the Clemson camps about how maybe they need to enter a new era of Clemson football with a new head of the football program, meaning replacing Dabo Swinney. Next team on the list, we're headed back to the Big 12. I think is what, fifth Big 12 team we've done today. And so we have the Colorado Buffalo. Deion Sanders, big prime time. How will he fare in year 3? And I think could be a pretty rocky road. Rocky road for this Colorado team. They start week 1 at Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech wins that game, meaning 0-1 for the Buffaloes. Before they host Weber State, and then they're at Northwestern. 2 games I think Colorado should be favored in, and I think they handle business in both of those. They're 2-1 in the first 3 weeks of the season. Then they travel to Baylor, who I already said Baylor's going to be really good, and they host Texas Tech. Both those games being losses, meaning they are 2-3 through the first 5 weeks. Then they get a bye week, and then they host Utah. Utah seemingly has beaten everybody in this. They beat Baylor. They beat Arizona, I think. Or excuse me, no, they didn't beat it. But they beat Utah. Utah beat Baylor. They beat BYU. They beat Arizona State. They've beaten everybody. Utah's got to be feeling pretty good about themselves until they walk in to Boulder, Colorado. And this is matchup of 2 former Pac-12 squads. And I think Colorado surprises everybody, shocks the world, and gets a win over Utah, meaning they are 3-3 and on pace for a bowl game through the first half of the season. Then the second half of the season gets pretty rough because they go to Oklahoma State. They go to Stillwater. Much improved Oklahoma State team. I think Oklahoma State wins. Host Kansas State, which we've been really brutal on Kansas State. I forget what I made Kansas State's record, but it's got to be pretty low because they've seemingly lost to everybody. And I think they lose to Colorado in this as well. So they're 4-4. Then they go to Arizona State, host Houston at Cincinnati. 2 easiest games are both on the road, and Houston's going to be really good this year. Connor Wegman back. And I think they go 0-3 in that stretch, meaning that they are 4-7, putting them out of the bowl game race, head into their last week of the season where they host UCF. Nothing really to play for except for pride. It'll be senior night, and I think Colorado gets the win, meaning Colorado's going to end the season 5-7, 1 game shy of a bowl game. And another reason why I think Colorado, Deion Sanders, maybe isn't the right fit for this Colorado team. I think Deion's got to find a way out of there and go find his way to a bigger school, aka Florida State. Florida State, I've been saying it for years. Deion Sanders needs to go to Florida State because I think he can recruit. He could recruit out of the state of Florida like nobody's business. And I think he would reinvigorate that Florida State Seminoles program. But again, we're not talking about that because Mike Norvell has not been fired and Deion Sanders is not going 5-7 yet. But according to my projection, I think he is going to. All right. That is the last team on my list of teams that we're going through today. We've done 11 of them. We have, just to recap, we have Alabama going 8-4. We have Arizona going 9-3. We have Arizona State going 5-7. We have Arkansas going 2-10, rough for them. We have Auburn going 7-5. We have the BYU Cougars going 9-3. The Baylor Bears going 8-4. We have the California Golden Bears going 9-3. We have the Cincinnati Bearcats going 3-9. We have the Clemson Tigers going Clemson Tigers going 6-6. And we have the Colorado Buffaloes going 5-7. 10 teams, 10 records. Going to be a great college football season. Make sure you stay tuned for the next batch of teams we do. We'll probably do D through G, or I forget how many, D through F or something. We'll get 10 to 12 teams probably per episode. And make sure that if you're listening on Spotify, that you go to Spotify and click that follow button, click that share button as well. Give it a rating, give it a like. These are all things I greatly appreciate. I really appreciate it. If you comment, I will reply to it. Ask questions, comments. We'll have mailbag episodes where fans will be involved. So type your questions, type your comments, type your concerns even about the podcast. I will be paying attention to those. And if you're listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Click the like button, click the thumbs up. It means a lot to me as a college football fan looking to become a future sports journalist. Alrighty. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again probably tomorrow with another episode of the Press Coverage Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. See y'all next time. I am, as always, your host, Ben Klingler.